Welcome to Sparks of Love. Today we have two very special guests, a very special love story, a little bit unusual love story. We have members of New York Kitchen. We have the executive director, Alyssa Belasco, and then we have the chef, Mary Beth Brinkerhoff. Did I butcher those names?
Nope,
you nailed it.
Just fine.
Yeah, so I was asking Alyssa before we got started how to help me say her name. So Alyssa, do you want to give us a little hint?
Phonetically, you just bell, ass, go.
It's still funny. Even though she just told me this a couple of minutes ago, it's still funny. So I wanted to give a little bit of history of how I found out about New York Kitchen. I have a son with special needs. His name is Jerri. He's 26 and he has autism. And I'm always looking for things to do with him out in the community. He's incredibly entrepreneurial. And he wanted to, start his own smoothie company, start his own bakery company, start his own, barbecue sauce company, which I actually have done. Sparks Foods and Blue Ridge Barbecue Sauce is our first product. And then I saw that you guys have classes. And so I thought, well, I'll sign up for the classes and see how we go. And we did an Asian noodles class in August of last year. And I talked to people at New York Kitchen, including Alyssa, and I said, hey, this class was a little fast for my son. He did it, but it was, even for me, I was like, oh my God, this is like boom, 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 like you see on, Chopped. And I would have been Chopped if I was on Chopped. I would have been Chopped because we burned stuff and Jared dropped the stuff into a boiling pot of water and it went place. So it was not the right class for us. And so I reached out to Alyssa and her staff and I said, hey, what if we do a class that's just for people with autism? And so that's how I know Alyssa and Mary Beth. But I thought we would get started by having Alyssa and Mary Beth tell us a little bit about New York Kitchen, and then we'll get into some more personal questions. So,
Sure.
Alyssa?
Yeah, so New York Kitchen started as the New York Wine and Culinary Center in 2006. And we're in Canandaigua, as you know. And really, we're a home for all things agriculture, food, and craft beverage that exists within New York State. We shine a really great light on Finger Lakes farms, a lot of craft beverage, wine, beer, cider, distilled spirits. We do these things through our cooking classes, hands-on cooking classes, as you know. We have an educational theater where we have most of our beverage programming, and then chef demonstrations where you really just watch and taste versus the hands-on piece. And then we have a tasting room that features 100% New York State product, which you'll probably share a little bit later about. Okay.
Yeah, our product is there.
Yeah.
So Blue Ridge Barbecue Sauce is actually on the shelf in the tasting room, which is one of my favorite places to go after work. And just there's a fire pit outside. The lake is right there. CMAC, the concert venue, is right there. There's a spa behind it. There's restaurants all around. And there's a beautiful restaurant upstairs for people that are looking for date night. There's a view of the lake. Like, it is. I'm going there today, actually. After the podcast recording, I have a painting with wine class at New York Kitchen, and Alyssa has one too, right?
Yep. I'm doing Exploring Black Wine. So it's Black History Month.
Yeah.
So they're going to be shining a light on some of the black winemakers and vineyards.
That's so cool.
And there's an interesting story that will be told behind how that came to be too.
I want to know about that after we get into.
And actually, you mentioned, the wine painting class.
Yeah.
It's not just painting while you're drinking wine. The artist and one of our instructors, actually, I don't know how he does it, but you cook the wine down, and that's actually what you're going to be painting with. So that's the paint.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I'm like, ooh, I love the idea of that.
It's
I'm
sold
excited.
out, so we already have another one on the calendar for April.
Yeah, well, my friend got sick and can't make it, so I have an extra ticket. So it's a shame this isn't live because I'm going to be there with 2 tickets today. So yeah, but I'm super excited to hear more about that. So
yeah, we, as you probably know, we're a nonprofit. A lot of people don't actually know that. So we try to have something for everyone, and I mean, even the artists, and as it relates to that particular class is craft beverage focused and art.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And, speaking of the classes, so we have Mary Beth Brinkerhoff here. So she is the chef for the special class that we're now running for people with autism called Sous Chef Academy. And I think we have 7 students now, plus their caregivers. So it's 14 people in a room. And the moment I met Mary Beth, I'm like, oh yeah, this woman is so patient, so creative, and makes it so fun. So Mary Beth, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you found New York Kitchen.
Well, we talked about it the first night of class. I actually have a master's degree in speech language pathology from Nazareth College here in Rochester. And so my first career was as a speech language pathologist. And I spent a lot of, all of that time working with students who had special needs. And my summers were often spent working with kids who are on the autism spectrum, just because most of my work was with preschool and babies and toddlers. So it was just kind of a nice change of skills and learning new things. And that's what my career was. Then when I had kids, I did early intervention, which is going into homes, babies and toddlers, working with families. And when I turned 40,
last week, right?
Right. It was maybe 2 weeks ago. I had,
My bad.
and through my whole life, I had always been in the kitchen. My mom was a self-taught cook, and I remember my brother and I, when we were kids, they would get Gourmet magazine, and my mom and her friends had a gourmet club. So every month somebody would make an app, somebody would make the main, somebody would make the dessert, but it was always from their menu. And they traveled house to house. So some months they were at our house. And when Cook's World used to be right at the 12 Corners, and they had a little cooking school, and my mom took French cuisine and Chinese cooking. Like, she was always learning. And I think that inspired me to always want to learn more about cooking. And so, like I said, when I turned 40, a heartbeat ago, New York State kind of came in and changed their parameters for early education and the ability to work per diem, which is what I had been doing. And so I took that opportunity to launch a personal chef company, which I just closed down last year. So for 17 years, I ran for Goodness Taste Personal Chef Services. And along about 8 years ago, long story short, I had taught cooking classes at different venues, but I found New York Kitchen. So I've been at New York Kitchen. It was New York Wine and Culinary when I started there 8 years ago. And so, this is my 9th summer. And I always tell people it's the place I get to do the two things I love, which is to teach people. Yeah. I love to watch people learn new skills and accomplish things and feel really successful, and food.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So last, I think it was 2 weeks ago, was the second class that we had for Sous Chef Academy. And one of the things that they were having trouble with, some of them, they were using plastic knives, and it wasn't chopping enough. And your assistant, I don't know her name, Kim, she's fantastic, came over and said, I think your son could handle a real knife. I'm like, yes, he can. Let's do that. And Mary Beth came over and was doing this hand over hand instruction, and it brought tears to my eyes because the patience that you have, and it's just such a beautiful, to me, it's a form of love. Like when you're teaching someone and you're having the patience to do it. And I've always thought that food is love. Like my early memories are my grandma with the cast iron skillet over a black pot-bellied stove making a cake of cornbread. I'm Southern. And that was every day we had pinto beans and cornbread and onions. That was and some bacon or ham on the side. And hearing that sizzle and just being in that class, it's bringing me back to the first memories I have of unconditional love. And I had Paulie Guglielmo in here to talk about food is love. And he used to teach for you over at New York Kitchen.
He just stopped.
I know. I'm so bummed
because I wanted to take. Going on, so.
He does. He bottles Blue Ridge barbecue sauce too. Put a plug in there. But that he was talking about his memories of food. For you, Alyssa, is that sort of your origin story too?
Yeah. I grew up in a family. My stepdad, who's been with me my whole life, loves to cook and actually owned restaurants and has always worked in the food service industry. So I remember as a kid, Friday nights we're watching TV and my family's having sea bass and really nice meals. I was the picky pain in the butt. Any way you could hide food, I wanted to eat pasta with butter and broccoli. That was my go-to. But
sounds good.
And so we had really good food. He loved to cook. My mother, on the other hand, recipes that I always thought were family recipes, she's like, no, that came from an elementary school cookbook from, and I kind of am like that too. But I decided I had that curiosity to learn to cook. I grew up in kind of the restaurant business, if you will, and food has just being a foodie in general has always been my go-to.
Yeah. My kids, when they were little, we lived in LA. My 3 oldest were born in Los Angeles, and talk about wonderful food. Oh my goodness. It was so authentic from around the world. And I grew up in the rural North Carolina mountains, foothills of the Blue Ridge, and we didn't have anything but Southern food. And so when I moved to LA, it was just like that scene in Moscow on the Hudson with Robin Williams. He sees all the coffee and he's like, coffee, coffee, coffee. Like I totally had that feeling. I would eat at Thai restaurants, Indian restaurants, Mexican restaurants, Japanese, like everything I could get for like global culture just to get that in there. And French restaurants. I love the French restaurants. And my little kids, I would take them as little toddlers to like these French bistros, near the beach in Los Angeles, and even to Montreal, like in, fancy restaurants. And so when we moved here, the first thing I did was plant a garden. And so I wanted to know, does New York Kitchen do that? Is it local, or do you have your own garden there?
Both.
Okay.
We do have a garden outside, obviously, Greater Rochester, New York, pretty seasonal. Yeah. But we do have a garden that's constantly been evolving and expanding. So primarily we've got herbs, peppers, tomatoes, things like that. But then we do have to supplement because we have classes that are running, multiple days per week. So we partner with, wherever we can. We've had CSAs personally where community shared agriculture, where we partner with a farm where we get product from there. And we're really working on, COVID was kind of a downtime to pivot a little bit. So now rebuilding some of the relationships with the farms and producers.
So where is this garden? Because I go there a lot. Like I feel like I should move to Canandaigua because I go to music there. I go to classes there. I went to the Fire and Ice Festival last week, which was awesome. I just love Canandaigua. Like, where is the garden?
It's on the side of the building, so where you would park. And our gardens in general are gorgeous, but the raised gardens are kind of within that. So more of like an edible garden. And then we have fruit trees that I remember somebody asking me what kind of plum variety something was, and I was like, I have no idea, but they said it was the best they had ever had, and I wished I could answer that. And then I found out over the summer that a lot of the fruit trees came from Red Jacket Orchards, which is local to that area too. So we're kind of piecing together some of the things that the Wine and Culinary, and we're still the Wine and Culinary Center, but that we started with to just get that information so we can continue to share it with the community.
So does New York Kitchen give certificates other than the Sous Chef Academy one? Can people earn certificates there? Or is that in your future maybe?
Probably in the future as far as culinary goes, but we do offer wine certification courses. WSET is the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, so there's different levels within that you can get certified. Serve Safe is, actually Mary Beth can better speak to that. And then TIPS training, which is about alcohol consumption and safety, and then we have the Wine Scholar Guild, which offers a focus on different wine regions, and you can get certified there.
I'm going to get certified. I can now see that that's in my future. So what is the one that you can speak about, Mary Beth?
Serve Safe. It's the National Restaurant Association, and it's something that's recommended for anybody who works in food service. So it's all about food safety, preventing foodborne illnesses, how to build out a kitchen properly. Oh. So there are different levels of it, and we teach the manager level. So it's a full day program and then an exam that you have to pass. And I also teach that over at Finger Lakes Community College at their culinary program. All of their students have to pass it too. So it's a national certification.
It's really important. When I took Jared back home to North Carolina this past October, and he hadn't been, I think, in probably 13, 14 years, and I wanted to reconnect him to his family. He had some behavioral problems when he was younger, and we went to a restaurant on the drive back up, and it's a 11-hour drive, and I got the worst food poisoning of my life.
Yeah.
And I went back and traced where it was. He didn't get sick. It wasn't a virus, and it was an unsafe food handling. Mm-hmm. I will never be able to eat that food again because I was sick for like 3 days, and I've never had such bad food poisoning. So I think that's really important that you're doing that. I remember when we took the class that was the Angry Chef guy. He was hilarious. And that was the title that he used for Jared and I, our pasta class over there. That was the title he was using. And I don't know where that comes from, but he was the nicest guy. I'm like, that's a misnomer. Like, he's definitely not angry. By the end of the class, he and Jared were on a first name basis.
I wonder if it's Chef Tom.
It has to
He's
be.
very tall,
Yeah.
and just so super fast. But the food was delicious. And every time we take a class there, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is like the best thing I've ever had. It makes me want to cook more. So maybe that's part of the mission, is to get people to cook more.
That is.
It is.
It really is. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love to experience things. That's the gifts that I love to give to people versus physical stuff. If I can go somewhere and have at least one nugget that I take away, it was worth it. And so I actually have been going to New York Kitchen for years. That was kind of my husband and I, that was our date night or gifts we would get each other, so much so that one year we actually gifted each other the same class. They let us switch so we could do two different classes. But so yeah, we've been going for years, and it's great when, my Facebook memories from before I worked there pop up and it's us in a cooking class. I will say, I'm like, I look a lot skinnier in that photo. I look a lot younger in that one. But
Well, there's more to love,
it
right?
It just shows that it's something that, it's a special place. It always has been a special place for us.
Yeah, I do notice it's a date night thing. So when Jared and I took the class, everybody else in the entire class, except for one, there was two friends, but everybody else was date night. And I'm like, oh, life goals. Like, talk about a love. I don't want to say litmus test, but, I'm in the dating world again. And I hadn't been for years because I was a single mom raising 4 kids. And only in the last 2 years have I been an empty nester. And as I've said on the podcast before, the first year I just went wild, like, oh my God, I'm going to go blonder, and I'm going to go to all these concerts. And I went to 16 concerts and started taking classes. And I'd, been looking at New York Kitchen. And one of the things that I think we do with love language is finding someone that speaks the same thing. And you don't have to be twins of each other, but you have to have some common interests. And, just looking at what you've said now, you and your husband really bonded over that. And I would say to anybody out there looking for love, and where do I take someone on a date? New York Kitchen, those cooking classes, it is sexy. Like, it is. It is like seeing the guy saute. I'm like, oh yeah, that is some good stuff. But, it's also family bonding too. Like, there's the sweetness of Sous Chef Academy, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But how did you end up at New York Kitchen? Like, what was the journey there?
It's an interesting one. So I was working for myself, freelance marketing and supporting nonprofits and small businesses. And then COVID happened, and that was the first thing that businesses cut as everyone's trying to figure out what's the future look like. And so I was getting ready to kind of put myself out there and say I am looking for what's next. And the position found me. The board was looking for someone that's, a foodie that loves wine, craft beverage, and really the local aspect. But the caveat was that they also have to know how to work in nonprofit and operate a nonprofit organization. So the board kind of put it out there, and the role found me.
Yeah, and she's so good at it. So one of the things I've noticed is that Mary Beth, you chose her for this class. Like, you knew that this was the right person. So you get personnel, which is really important, like finding that right fit.
Right, yeah. I mean, every chef really brings a different thing, and Mary Beth has that teaching experience. But, I mean, she lives and breathes it. And then Kim, who also is assisting in that, she is a retired elementary school teacher.
That makes sense
and
now.
In retirement, she's been supporting culinary programs. So she supports FLCC, Finger Lakes Community College, their culinary arts program, and she has done that with Monroe Community College. So that's a no-brainer.
And I also think that just the way that the facility itself is structured, you guys do a really good job of fitting it. So I wanted the class for sous chef to be in the big theater, and you were like, well, I think it's more of an intimate setting. I think it'd be better. And she's right. I was thinking of how it would work for me in the typical neurotypical world, but now that we've had 2 classes under our belt, I'm like the small nature helps the people that the class is designed for. So just your expertise in like all the different facets is very evident, but just the facility itself is beautiful, and just there's. Is it 3 tiers or 2 tiers?
2.
There's a deck upstairs that's
Just
outside
the 2.
and
We
inside.
have no basement, even though.
But it's just really cozy and welcoming. And I just think that the way it's marketed is brilliant. And I'm constantly telling my friends about it. And so, to pivot to Sous Chef Academy. So my son had wanted to have his own business for years. I have pictures of him when he's little with his Easy Bake Oven and his little.
That's how we all start.
Yes. And my ex-husband was like, he's a boy. You shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, whoa. Look at, there's all sorts of male chefs in the world. So many. It's not just female. And my dad is a barbecue aficionado, and he's a meat cutter, and he likes to grill. And so I really fostered that in my son. In baking, he had his own little apron as a preschooler, and he had his own I still have the apron and the little plastic measuring things, and I have pictures of that. And I just thought it was really important to try to at least ask. You miss 100% of the chances that you don't take, 100% of the swings that you don't take. And so I decided to go for it. I have been so heartwarmed by how welcoming New York Kitchen has been, and I could tear up right now, because so many places we go in life with our special needs kids, and the world says no. And Paulie Guglielmo didn't say no. At Kraft Canner, he said, yes, let's bottle that sauce. We're nowhere near the volume that he requires for his customers, but he's such a good-hearted person. He's going to be the incoming president of Rochester Rotary, which he inspired me to join, so I'm now a member of Rochester Rotary. So you can see how food is starting to bleed back in. It's coming full circle.
It's community. It creates community.
It does. And a friend of mine, he said his happiest memories, and he had a troubled childhood, are going to his grandma's house. It was calm and peaceful, and she fed him whatever he wanted. Food is it's intimate, but it's also, it literally nourishes you. It's so intimate. And, the way the class is there's structures. We had chopping skills taught. The first class, there was measuring skills taught. There was saute, there was stirring, there's baking. There's so many, a comprehensive approach that is happening in Sous Chef Academy. And I have had people in the political world reach out to me and saying, wow, New York is really a leader in making local, really important. I think we do a really good job of that. And I remember when it was the Culinary Institute. And why did the name branding change? What was behind that?
They basically wanted it to seem more approachable. The New York Wine and Culinary Center doesn't really allow for it. It sounds kind of not sterile, but not approachable.
It sounds educational,
academic, and not for everyone. And so there was a rebrand to New York Kitchen. We're still kind of searching for a tagline or something under it, because I don't think New York Kitchen I don't think that name fully showcases what we do.
Food is love.
But that's why, you got to follow us on social media. Our website is
What is your website?
nykitchen.com. It will be the new one. We're in a rebrand of the website right now. Should be live probably by the time this goes live. So I'm excited.
Well, I run a women's hiking group that I started called Rock Women Hike. And one of the things we like to do is we try to pair, after we've hiked a mountain, we're pretty thirsty. And so we try to pair a winery or a brewery or a cafe, restaurant, something. And we'll do a weekend trip, girls trip, once a year. And so last year we went to Ithaca, and we, haunted the Moosewood. We went to the Moosewood Cafe, and then we did a really old pub that's been around since the 1800s. It was so cool. So it would be interesting to see if there could be partnerships with hiking groups, draw them in, because we go to Casa Larga after this one hike we do at Place in Parenton. There's a lot of opportunities to have that positive, group bonding and stuff.
We have in the warmer months, there's some biking groups that actually, and these people are coming from all over the country, but they have, I don't know if it's a retreat, but they come They do their biking thing. I believe they stay at the Lake House, which is the hotel
Yes.
on our campus.
I want to stay there, and you guys offer discounts too when you buy
Yes,
a class.
when
I
you buy
saw
a
that.
class. Oh yeah, make it an overnight for sure.
Yeah.
Especially in the winter months, it's a really, really good deal, and their pool
I
is
should
heated
do
year
that.
round.
Ooh, I should do that.
But so this biking group, they go and they miles and miles and miles, and then they come and have an experience at New York Kitchen. Sometimes it's been a chef demo, and we're actually talking to them now. They're going to do cooking class that has a healthier-ish spin, but they've got to get their carbs in. You know, they've been biking all day. We can help with that.
Yeah. Well, I've had some people reach out to me who are teachers wanting to know for like class field trip days, like for elementary. Like my kids have been cooking since they were like preschoolers. Like that's the thing that they love. So I think there's just so much opportunity there because especially with teachers like, you know, Kim and Mary Beth, who just are so patient and wonderful. I think there's such a huge connection there like that the children really, really love.
Yeah, we always say that we're not short for ideas. It's more of the time and execution. Yeah. But that is something that we do and we want to do more of. The biggest thing is funding because schools don't always have a budget to be able to make something like that happen. We also, you know, there's only so much time, and we're fortunate that Finger Lakes Community College, their culinary arts labs take place at New York Kitchen. Okay. It depends on the semester, but usually it's 3 days a week. So, so we do have some availability to do those things because schools have significantly cut the home and careers portion. You know, it's been a minute since I've been in school, but I know that when I was there wasn't a lot of opportunity even to learn those skills. I learned anything I did for cooking, it was at home.
So you guys,
and I was just going to chime in and say we usually say kids 12 and older just because of safety, because we do have those big ranges and sharp knives and things. Plus, they have to be able to, you know, to be tall enough to reach the counters and things. So we tend to focus on like middle school and older. And we do have some reach-in programs. We have some of our local schools where they bring their kids in for an afternoon and do a brief, you know, class, and we talk a little bit about nutrition and basic skills because Alyssa's right. Those home and career classes are not like when I took home economics, we learned how to cook, and now it's just kind of a quick and dirty, you know, bang, bang, boom. And I feel like that's a missing link for a lot of people, knowing how to cook and feed themselves. So.
Oh, I have a funny story about that. So I didn't have room in my high school on a curriculum to take the home ec, and I was a jock. I'm like, that's not for me. I'm not going to cook. What are you talking about? And so I didn't take it. And then I got married several years later, and I moved to L.A., and I never spent time in the kitchen with my mom learning. And she was more like, you know, she wants her space in the kitchen, like, don't, you know, have me come in, not like my grandma. And I didn't know how to make an egg. Like something as simple as that. And I remember I was just dating. We were not even engaged yet, but LA's expensive, so we're living together. And I made him breakfast one morning. I did bacon and eggs and I think toast. And he took one bite and he's like, you know,
it was a sympathy bite.
It was a sympathy. You could just see the look on his face, and he held it as long as he could, and he just stood up and he ran to the sink and like poured the whole thing out and spit out. I was hurt. And after that, I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to cook. And so my grandma, I would call her and learn how to cook because I really, I didn't know how to make an egg. And then when I got divorced, you know, like 20 years later, the first thing I did to support myself was personal chef. I had a job, but I needed a side hustle. And there was an older man at the gym named Charlie who his wife had just died and he didn't know how to cook. And so I'm like, I'll do it. I need money. And so I would, before work every day, take him 3 meals for the day. And then after work, pick up the dishes, containers, see what he liked. And I did that for about a year and to support myself. And so I think that it's a useful skill. But I also just think that New York, that local love that we do, I love going to the tasting room. You have really great wine they're called sommeliers. I say that word wrong.
Sommelier.
Say it again.
Sommelier.
Sommelier. I have to work on that with my southern accent. And they recommended the best one I've ever had. And it was a young man. I forgot his name. Chris. He is a gem. Like he just said, what do you like? And he asked me a series of questions. It was the perfect wine. It was so good. The wines, I've never had a bad glass glass of wine there. I just love it.
And that's what they're really there for, is to talk you through what do you like. There's such a range when it comes to wine, especially of what there is to offer, especially in New York State. And so they want to talk you through that and pull out what you're looking for, and then they'll have a recommendation. And you can taste it and then have a glass if you like it. You can buy the bottle there to take home. So we've got you.
That's awesome. Well, do you guys do so I like lighthouses. And so I make my kids go, and we tour all lighthouses, and they have lighthouse passports. So every time you go to a lighthouse, you get a passport. Is there a winery passport that you can get and then get a prize at New York Kitchen? Is there something like that?
There's actually, we should do our own, but this is a shameless plug, I'm on the board of the Rochester Finger Lakes Craft Beverage Trail. Okay. And what that is, and we have a passport. You can buy them at New York Kitchen, and there's 35-ish wineries, breweries, cideries, distilleries on there in, I think it's 4 different counties. So Livingston, Monroe, Ontario, and Wayne. And you can go there, and there's special offers that each place provides, and then you get a stamp, and then when you've got them all, you submit it, and you are eligible to win a prize pack of, it's like $250 worth of stuff.
I have to do this. So what is the website for that? Is there a website for it? Or so it's called Rochester Finger Lakes Craft Beverage Trail.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but we've talked about those types of things. We're working on a membership program now, and trying to figure out what it is that people would like, because we do have a lot of return guests in addition to one-time visitors that might be in the area or coming to the state. People come from all over, and it's really rewarding to see, when people are registering, where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I go for CMAC a whole lot. So CMAC is the Constellations brand concert venue, and it's on the grounds of Finger Lake Community College. Mm-hmm. My son, Jared, the one that has autism, he loves music too. So food and music are his 2 favorite things, and sports, and Taylor Swift. And we go, and so we go to concerts a whole lot because it's 20 minutes from his group home, and they have these wonderful food trucks, and then they always feature at CMAC like local wines and things like that. So is there anything that New York Kitchen does with CMAC that we should know about?
We typically have specials, so we invite people to come for, pre-game on the terrace, which we added just to have an outdoor space connected to the tasting room in 2022. So inviting people to come there and get, if you show your CMAC ticket, you get whatever the special offer is.
Oh, that's really cool, because I literally go at least once a month, like during the whole season. I have so many tickets there this year. They have a great venue. But the other thing I noticed is that the hotel behind you, tell me the name of it again.
The Lake House.
The Lake House, they a lot of people will walk from CMAC to New York Kitchen and then to the Lake House. So they've got the whole evening planned.
Right.
They don't have to, fight that awful traffic after the concert, and they don't have to drive. So I live almost an hour away. And I'm thinking about doing that, just like, have my dinner at New York Kitchen and then stay at the Lake House after the concert. And it's all within a pretty short...
Yeah, I think CMAC, from New York Kitchen to CMAC is just shy of 2 miles, I think. I have done the walk.
You have?
It's not bad.
Okay.
Just because I didn't want to deal with parking and things like that. And then the Lake House, we share a parking lot, so it's right there. So a lot of times people are coming to town to stay at the hotel, and then they're like, what's this place? Mm-hmm. So we're trying to, we're changing some of our signage and things so that it's more obvious of what happens in those walls, because you don't always know.
I love the design too. I don't know who designed the building, but it's just gorgeous. Like it looks, I feel like I'm on vacation when I go there. I'm like, it feels good. And what was the reason that it's a nonprofit? Is there a story behind that?
So really we started because Rob Sands, who's Constellation Brands, his father Marvin wanted to create something like this.
Okay.
And at the time, there was a place in Napa, California that was on the verge of opening. It was called Copia. It's since it's no longer, but actually the Culinary Institute of America operates there. When I went to Napa last year, we stopped by to take a look, and it is a large larger scale. It's a kind of a beast. So it was really Marvin's vision to create something like this in the Finger Lakes, and really just showcase the bounty that New York State has to offer. So that's really how it started, and we're going to be celebrating 20 years in 2026.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask each of you to think about what is, like, if you're trying to show love to someone, it doesn't have to be romantic love. It could be a friend who's sick, or, your child, or your sister, your brother, anybody in your life, maybe your neighbor. What is the food dish that you make to show love to them?
Oh, well, it really depends on who it is. But
okay, well, let's go. So let's say date night. We'll start with date night, and then we can do the non-romantic one.
Well, I always laugh because my husband is not a foodie.
Okay.
So on Valentine's Day, I have to make a heart-shaped pizza, and he gets whatever beer he's jamming on. And I swear to God that if that tradition ever varied, my children would fear we were getting divorced. So that's his thing. But, when I host like our family gatherings, my parents live locally. My mother-in-law is local, and, lasagna or a big chicken pot pie or something like that. And in the summertime, we love to grill and do things outside. So I like to do a variety of things.
Yeah. What about you, Alyssa?
So my husband is actually the cook out of the couple. I'm kind of his sous chef, except he'll say, pour yourself a glass of wine and go sit with the dogs.
That is a keeper.
This, right?
Does he have a twin brother?
But when it is my turn, I love to make quiche. I am someone that can eat leftovers room temperature cold. I actually don't heat many leftovers up.
It congeals nicely. Yes,
so,
I know what you mean.
So quiche is my go-to, and that's something that I can make in advance and to bring to somebody, and then they can heat it up, eat it cold right out of the tin, whatever they want to do on their own terms.
I didn't eat breakfast before I came here, and now I really want quiche. Well, I saw this thing on the internet the other day, and I just got drawn in because the sizzle of the oil heating, but it was chopped cabbage, carrots, and egg. And I'm like, that's weird. And then I watched this lady cut it, and I loved her knife so much I actually ordered the knife. I had to have that because I have a terrible knife. I now have this wonderful Cutco knife, and I went ahead and chopped the stuff. So when I get home today, that's what I'm going to do for dinner. And I sometimes have to do comfort food cooking for myself now that I live alone. But I remember when I was sick one time, my friend Melanie, I lived beside Melanie Brocious, and the Brocious family were incredibly instrumental in helping me rebuild my life. So shout out to the Brocious family. They're all in food. They've been working in the food industry forever. Their children are chefs. Their sons, they have 2 sons and 2 daughters. And only, I think, one of the 4 of their children doesn't cook. And it is just like, I'm laying there, I'm divorced, I'm trying to figure things out, knock at the door, and she comes with like this bounty of food. I'm like, that is when I felt love of community. I think what New York Kitchen does is it gives me that feeling every time I go in. You accept my son, and you accept all the mothers on the first day. Mary Beth can tell you, on the first day of Sous Chef Academy, every one of us had tears in our eyes because it was acceptance. These are people that the world has sometimes and oftentimes said no to. New York Kitchen is a place where you go and you feel love. Like, I feel that food and love. And when my kids were sick, I always made them homemade chicken soup. And I did the barefoot contessa, I forgot her name. The lady, Ina Garten, I do her recipe. And she's like, if you can make the chicken yourself, it's better. And so I do the whole thing. Like, it's an all-day thing. So anytime someone in my life is sick, I'll saute the carrots, and I do butter and olive oil combo. And then when I was in dating world, not engagement chicken. I've never made engagement chicken. I do engagement spinach lasagna.
There you go.
And what you said about the next day, lasagna is so much better the next day.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting in the fridge overnight somehow makes it. But that's how, you show love to people is, that food language.
That comfort that it provides.
It is. And for me, like, I get happy when I'm driving over to Canandaigua. Like, I'm just like, the things that I love lakes, I love hiking trails, I love music, and I love food. And they're all right there at around New York Kitchen. You've got the park there, and you've got Twisted Rail Brewery there. Like, there's so many different things. I forgot the name of the park.
Kershaw Park.
Kershaw Park is like this beautiful lake. And I had my friend Maggie from high school up last summer, and we did the Canandaigua Lady. We did the tour out there. So it was just like a wonderful place to be.
And Main Street's like always evolving as far as the businesses there, all local. It's really just a great vibe. I just thought the other day, and this is not, I'm not even making this up, and it's been a stressful week, but I don't wake up anymore and think, oh, I got to go to work. And I've had that with a lot of jobs.
Yes,
I used to listen to Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 every day on my way to work to a certain job.
I love Dolly. Shout out to Dolly.
And I don't have that. And then that same night, I took a class with one of our instructors, a wine class, and she said that to the class. And she's like, I'm not just saying this because my boss is in the room. And it really is true. It's something special. And, I fell in love with New York Kitchen before I worked there. And then I just had the privilege of coming on board.
I fell in love with New York Kitchen too, and so is my son and all the people in the class. So, well, thank you guys so much. This has been wonderful. Check out New York Kitchen. It's newyorkkitchen.com. Is that right?
nykitchen.com.
nykitchen.com. It is a place is very accepting, and they will warm your hearts and your tummies. All right. Thank you for watching Sparks of Love. Have a great week.